What's going on, everybody? Eric Lindquist at Stokastic here on the OddsShopper channel, coming with a fireplace edition of Lindy's Leans, Likes, and Locks. Hit that like button, subscribe button, notification bell. Goes a long way for me on this video. Goes a long way for you. That way you become apprised whenever great content is going live here at our little neck of the YouTube woods. Still here in Scotland, but, well, Bet365 exists, and I'm able to get a bunch of action down. There are going to be some things that we talk about because there's a couple of numbers that are slightly worse that I'll be betting, but I'm going to give you the best place that you can play all of my plays. And, well, we have 3 locks on the card, all coming up almost exclusively in that afternoon window, which is pretty wild. I feel really good about this card. We've now got 2 weeks of sample size. I've been constantly just evolving, and, well, 5-0, 2-0 in the likes and locks on the Thursday primetime, which, again, it was an ugly football game, and I generally am pretty good at betting ugly football games. I found some value. Braylon Allen, 11 rushing attempts, 20.5 rushing yards. Absolute smash that out of the water, 50+, I believe. And then, we ended up getting the lock across with Demario Douglas as well. Way over highest receiver there on the New England side of things. So feeling good about the process, feeling good as we're continuing to evolve. And, if you played the entire gamut, Garrett Wilson plus 150. I saw anytime touchdown. Love to see the screenshots. Let's get some more of them here on a Sunday main slate. I've got 13 games I'm going to break down for you, including that Sunday night football game. And, well, if you guys want to get all of my information, because there's some things that are still kind of waiting in the wings in terms of injury news on this slate, I'll talk you through all of it. Sign up for Tails. Well, I'll be in there all day tomorrow because, well, there's a bar that I found that has American football, and we're going to be there exclusively almost the entire day as soon as I get done on NFL Live before lock. But if you guys want to sign up for that, well, not only get my NFL picks, but you can also get Eitan Shander, my boy. He's in the college football streets. I'm not. He's putting together tons and tons and tons of parlays on a daily basis. I'm not always doing that unless, of course, we're looking at round robins in the MLB streets for the home run department, sometimes strikeouts, and then NFL. Going to be firing up more anytime touchdowns here. But anywho, if you want to get both mine and Eitan Shander's picks, we got Lindy 50. That's done. That is done here right now, the 50% off. But we got 2 for 1. So you can sign up for mine and you can get Eitan Shander's for the exact same price. So again, $20 for a week, $50 for a month. Would love to see you there if you sign up down below. Let's go win some money together here on this Sunday slate. So without further ado, producer Jacob, let's get to the picks. Game number 1, the Chargers, Pittsburgh. Quarterback news all over the place here. Justin Herbert, high ankle sprain out of the middle of nowhere. And, they're 2-0 behind Harbaugh, feeling pretty good. Well, the gym version, John still in Baltimore, 0-2. What a time to be alive. But the Chargers, the big news, Justin Herbert, obviously with that high ankle sprain, they're still saying he's optimistic to play in this game. We've seen this total bet down, 34.5. Now it's sitting at here as I currently record, which again, 20 minutes ago, it was sitting at 35.5. And across the industry, nobody is expecting points here in this one. I think it's an interesting spot to maybe fire up a Justin Fields under 0.5 interceptions. I think it looks actually better on pick'em sites than what it does over on sports books. So again, some of the juice is getting a little bit outrageous there for sure. But I see Pat Freiermuth as kind of an interesting guy as Justin Fields continues to be the quarterback here. It's a 2-0 Pittsburgh team. Kind of a surprise here for me, that's for sure. But Russell Wilson, he's questionable for this one. I doubt he would end up being on the field here unless something really bad happened to Justin Fields anyway. He's been efficient. Obviously, we know what he brings to the table in terms of run. Even if he's not necessarily going to be successful with it, it's the threat of it that exists here for Arthur Smith, the new offensive coordinator there in Pittsburgh, formerly head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. His run rate is still absurd, and it will continue to be absurd, and that is a ticking clock. And the Chargers, they want to run the ball, ticking clock. I see exactly why this total keeps crashing with the current quarterbacks and with the current offensive coordinators, how they are going about calling plays. So, there's not a ton to like here, but Pat Freiermuth, over 2.5 receptions purely because it is standing out in terms of modeling. He has been extremely efficient. These throws have been very close to the line of scrimmage. 4 for 4 in both of these 2 games, 4 receptions, 4 targets in both of them. Seems like a thread that it could continue here. Just close A-dot throws, make Justin Fields' life easy, have that threat of running, and then just have Najee Harris and Jalen Warren run incessantly. But probably not going to be betting this game whatsoever. A game that not only will I be betting, I will be very interestedly watching. Houston Texans, Minnesota Vikings. My 2-0 Minnesota Vikings head coach Kevin O'Connell. He is the truth. He's making things work. Won't stop till they get them in their birthday. So Ludicrous here from Scotland. Who knew it? Not you, not me. But we got Minnesota just continuing to have little tiny knick-knack injuries popping up from time to time. I think Justin Jefferson's going to be 100% for this one, but without Jordan Addison out on the field, it's still not great knowing that Josh Naylor. Well, it's Jalen Naylor. Josh Naylor's a different human, but Jalen Naylor, he is definitely one of those guys that you don't necessarily want to be your number 2 go-to guy. We're still waiting for TJ Hawkinson to get back. It sounds though week 7 is going to be when he is getting back, and that will definitely affect the ancillary pieces, not so much Justin Jefferson. But for the Houston side, everybody, the big news, the running back position, Joe Mixon out, Dameon Pierce out. I think we're going to see a healthy dose of passing, and in fact, I just took their run rate, passing rate over expectation. Joe Mixon got 30 carries there in week 1. 30 carries? No, it was 25. Last time. No, it was 30 total carries. And he got dinged up. He had 9 that he had against Chicago. But yeah, 30 carries, 159 yards. Without him, yeah, Cam Akers, is it a revenge in his heart spot? Sure. But he had a really big fumble towards the end of that one. Plus, hasn't been a crazy efficient runner. He did have 4.6 yards per carry there in week 2 when he got activated. Did not get activated week 1. I think Dario Ogunbowale will be out there quite a bit, but more of a special teamers, pass catcher. I think you're going to see a lot of passing attempts. Now, CJ Stroud over 33.5 passing attempts. That one is at -120 at FanDuel. That gets our card started, but don't sleep on Sam Darnold over 31.5 passing attempts. I think it looks good in America where you are. America, don't catch you slipping. -123 over at Caesars, but here's the thing. I can't get it. It's Bet365 or bust in most places here. I don't want to sign up for a bunch of these spots where you have your passport in play for different things, but anywho, for the most part, I feel really good about Bet365 firing up the CJ Stroud one. Not so good about Sam Darnold, but I think in America, if I were there, I would be playing that for sure. Philly, 2.5 going into New Orleans. And I will say New Orleans, new offensive coordinator, new life. Because Allen, one of the coaches that I don't necessarily trust in the NFL, but my God, there is nothing you could possibly say to deter me away from like the insane improvement on the New Orleans Saints. I mean, we're seeing them play historically good offense. Derek Carr taking deep shots. Some of these motions, I saw a couple of different breakdowns over on X, just talking about some of the schematics that they're putting together. I like how they're utilizing Kamara. I like how they're utilizing tight end positions out on the field and just kind of throwing some misdirection. Just the hell with it. I mean, it's just been an absolute warfare situation, and I'm kind of surprised we're getting 2-1 here on a deep shot. But before I get to that one, Philadelphia, we're going to have A.J. Brown yet again for this one. That's going to be problematic for them to some extent because A.J. Brown is extremely good at football. But we're going to see Devonta Smith out of the slot continue to get peppered with targets. 18 targets now through 2 weeks, 7 catches in both of those games. And now New Orleans, you do have a couple of pieces that on the New Orleans side are decent, but I think we might be seeing a lot of New Orleans shootout games. 49.5 here in the Dome down in New Orleans times. They are a change in and offensively. They've been just outrageous. So shout out for all of the changes on that side, which leads me to this. Rashid Shaheed, these deep motion situations where they're pulling safeties and just finding all of these mismatches and one-on-one coverage for a burner like Rashid Shaheed. I absolutely love his anytime touchdown, plus 190 at FanDuel. It's pretty comparable at Bet365, so I fired it. I think you should be firing it. I think we should all be firing it. Ooh, it might be an anytime touchdown round-robin season for me on this program. Because then I have more anytime touchdowns. Denver, Tampa Bay, don't know why, but you want to justify ripping someone's head off. If you're a Denver fan and had to watch that offense perform, I like Bo Nix. He was a great college quarterback for the Oregon family that I married into, but you know what he hasn't been so far? A guy who throws the ball downfield whatsoever. 20 for 35 against Pittsburgh in come from behind mode. Did have 7 yards per completion there, at least against Pittsburgh. 3.3 week 1 in Seattle. So if you get in a neutral game script, it could be one of those spots where we see some deflated situations. But yeah, Tampa Bay 2-0. Baker Mayfield, one of the coolest press conferences, breaking down everything for Bryce Young and that benching. We'll get to that, of course, on this program. But I want to just give a shout out to Baker Mayfield because he's made all the necessary changes. And I think the switch really flipped for him at the end of that LA Rams, like 4-week, 5-week rental period. He goes in on like 4 days, goes out and professionally beats up a Vegas team that was vying for a playoff spot, kind of sending their team into a little bit of turmoil in the aftermath of that one, because since then, Vegas down on the whole stock other than that unbelievable victory, come from behind victory there in week 2 against Baltimore. But I look at the passing rate over expectation, and Tampa Bay, they're getting absolutely nothing on the ground from Rachaad White. They're getting absolutely nothing on the ground from Bucky Irving. So it's going to be a healthy dose of passing. And if you're going to give me a healthy dose of passing against this secondary, this Denver secondary, Patrick Surtain has been downright horrible so far to start off this season. Gets paid, and he shows up as 94th out of 96th in terms of coverage grade. Now, can he make that rebound? Sure. I mean, we're talking about the guy who's number 2 in terms of PFF coverage grade 2 years ago. Last season, 12th out of the 127 qualifiers. So Pat Surtain has some time to rebound. But on the other side of it, Riley Moss, I just don't trust any of these guys here. And Chris Godwin, the number 1 ranked wide receiver in PFF, the number 1 in terms of expected fantasy points in my model. I feel really good about Chris Godwin out of the slot here going forward at higher slot usage as they should. And then Mike Evans, he's got a plus sign in front of it at a bunch of books, plus 115 over at ESPN. I do think the Mike Evans side is a little bit more fascinating for me in this specific matchup up against Surtain. Just a gigantic Mike Evans who continues to do it. Had a pretty quiet week 2. If we had seen him potentially get in the end zone against Detroit instead of the double dose of Chris Godwin there, I think we would have seen a number that minus 110, minus 105, one of the shorter wide receivers on the entire board in terms of odds. But at plus money, I think you bet him and Chris Godwin have on your radar. Plus 140 at FanDuel is a pretty decent spot. I can't get anything comparable over here, but I think both of those are in play. So Chris Godwin in the lean department, but Mike Evans, he's my official play because, well, I have the money wagered on. And if you want to see everything that I'm betting, everything that I've wagered money on, try out this. We got myself, Eitan Shander. We've teamed up here to bring you guys 2-for-1, promo code 2-for-1. That gives you my picks and his picks in the NFL, in the MLB. God, Eitan's betting college sports. He's betting WNBA. He's betting absolutely everything. And you should check out his pick because the guy is reliable. He and I have been working together here now for a couple of years. Cannot recommend him. He is one of the real ones here in the industry. In fact, we have so many real ones in the industry at Tails, including my friend DKDFS. Give him give him some love. I know he's got DKDFS50. I know he's got his code going on as well. Head over to Tails by OddsShopper. That is our marketplace where you can find my plays, Eitan Shander's plays, now 2-for-1 using that code. Alrighty, y'all, back to the picks. This is a tough one. This is a really, really tough one. And I just talked about DKDFS, so I'll give him a shout out because he's the OG of this specific play that I'm looking at. I just don't know how to utilize it here yet. I'm trying to be able to, I have it queued up on my phone. It is the thing that I have stacked up in my phone. And if we get news on Jordan Love potentially playing in this football game, I'm going to slam unders because there's a chance that he ends up playing here in week 3. I think it's still a little bit slim, but in the event that it ends up getting voided and he does play and Malik Willis doesn't see the field whatsoever, awesome. I think re-injury risk, I think the opportunity to still have Malik Willis have a play or 2 packaged in it creates an interesting situation. Now, I looked at Tony Pollard unders to begin the Tennessee conversation. I do think we're going to see more Tajay Spears wrapped into a little bow and thrown out there from time to time, but Tajay Spears got dinged up. He practiced fully on Friday. He's listed questionable for this game, and if there's any limitations to him, it's really hard for me to jam some of these Pollard unders. In fact, this is the first card I can remember ever in terms of doing Lindy's Leans, Lights, and Locks in the NFL streets, where I don't have a single under on the card right now, which is really, really weird because, well, OddsShopper and positive EV betting, a lot of the things I'm doing in terms of like the other plays on my portfolio are taking some unders and finding market-based approach ways of adding to my card. But I didn't have any issue building out a card whatsoever today, and I feel really good about it, in fact. But this is where the unders could really come in handy. Malik Willis continuing to start for the Green Bay Packers. If he ends up playing in this one, I don't want to play these unders. But if we get news Jordan Love is in and I can slam some of these unders on Malik Willis, the way that DK talked about, and hey, you could fire it up here now. And if you think Jordan Love plays, you're going to get voided if, he plays every single snap and Malik Willis doesn't see the field. And if Malik Willis plays one snap in any capacity, running play, goal line play, a package that they worked on in practice where they don't want Jordan Love rolling a certain direction, all of those unders are going to hit unless he just throws something ridiculous. So I'd be looking at under passing yards, number 1. I'd be looking at under picks, probably number 2, because he's probably going to be out there from primarily running purposes, and under rushing yards in that order. Because again, if he is limited, you are looking at a smash in terms of like a 20 to 1, 25 to 1 pick if you put all of those unders together. But look at a couple of them. I don't want to bet them individually. I would just be slamming the entire portfolio. The Giants and the Cleveland Browns coming up here next. And I think there's one big disappointment on the Cleveland side so far. Fantasy owners of this specific player probably are aware of who that is. But let's start on the Giants side. They are very bad. Very, very bad. I think we all expected Brian Dable and Daniel Jones and all these guys to struggle this season, but it's been like especially bad for everybody except for Malik Neighbors. I mean, how good is this guy? And now the target rates are getting absolutely absurd. Daniel Jones, not even pretending to look in another direction. In fact, 28 passing attempts against Washington. 28 passing attempts. You know how many went to Malik Neighbors? 18. 18 of his 28 passing attempts went to one guy. We're talking about north of a 60% target share going to Malik Neighbors. I've said it before, I'll say it again. He is a difference maker on a field. He's one of my favorite wide receiver prospects that I've ever watched on tape, and I think we're going to continue to see him ascend. Now, from a database perspective and from a line perspective, coming off of these ridiculous targets, it's not like books don't see it. So if I had to do anything, I'd be taking under 6.5 receptions for him. I'd be taking under touchdowns and packaging it, although he is plus 250 to score in this game. I stared at that one for a long time. And then I remembered it's Cleveland on the other side. There are reports that Myles Garrett, he's got feet issues, foot issues, plural, feet issues, both feet. I think that's going to be worrisome going forward, but for this specific game, sounds like he's going to continue playing through the issue, maybe have off-season surgery and try to, get in the hurry-up offense to come back. But, I mean, it'll all depend on the early portion of this season. If Deshaun Watson continues to play decently like we saw in week 2, awesome. If he plays like he did in week 1, we're probably going to see Myles Garrett get out of there sooner rather than later, and there might be some attackable stuff. But the attackable thing for me here is Amari Cooper. You do not feel good seeing Jerry Jeudy be the go-to wide receiver here for Deshaun Watson. I mean, he's had the 14 targets, 8 catches, but I will say Amari Cooper's seen quite a big target share. 17 targets for him, only 5 catches. Amari Cooper's too good. He's made this happen for too many quarterbacks, going to his Raiders days, going to his Cowboy days, going to Cleveland the last couple of years, when we even saw like DTR be effective with Amari Cooper. I think we're going to see them get on the same page here sooner rather than later. This is a really low number that most of the time I'd be locking against this Giants secondary, but over 47.5. I get that Amari has not exceeded 16 yards in a game this entire season, and that overall he has 27 receiving yards on the year. I don't care. It's all about modeling and looking forward based on the target share. I think the over is a really good play. Got him closer to 62. The Bears and Colts coming up here next. 1.5 point dogs of the Chicago Bears. They should be 0-2. They were very, very fortunate against Tennessee that their defense and special teams decided to do magical, historic stuff. And then Caleb Williams, he has been on the pure cold struggle bus. He goes to CJ Stroud and gets, that was the weirdest thing to wake up to over here on this side of the pond, was all of these insane hot takes about, Caleb Williams is a bust. But then I saw that video. I saw the video of him and CJ Stroud having that conversation, and something just didn't rub the right way with Caleb Williams. I know you want to be confident. I know you want to be a little bit cocky, but like, he kind of dismissed a dude, I think, in CJ Stroud, who I was extremely wrong about. Probably the coolest quarterback in terms of how he breaks down tape. He talked in the offseason about how he obsesses about Matt Stafford and how he gets safeties off and these 2 high safeties and being able to just stare, and then deliver down the middle of the field. I think CJ Stroud's one of the smartest quarterbacks, and he gets it. He absolutely gets it from the quarterback position, but Caleb Williams dismissing him didn't rub me the right way. Really don't have anything other to say than, that bugged me a little bit. But Anthony Richardson, it's kind of been bugging me what Indy's been doing, trying to utilize him. Now, we saw in week 1 some unbelievable deep shots against Houston, and then Indy goes in. They get trounced to Green Bay and Malik Willis, which is not a great look. Not a great look in any way, shape, or form. But Anthony Richardson has to be airing the ball out a little bit more. And Chicago's defense hasn't proved crazy formidable, but we saw them win a game in week 1. They're top 10 in my model still in defense. And I look at guys like on the outside, Jalen Johnson. He's the number 3 quarterback on PFF grading. You have a guy in Tyreek Stevenson on the other side who's probably going to be lining up against Pittman because of his size. It's going to be interesting. And then we get Josh Downs back into the fray. That's kind of the key for me. We saw a crazy good rapport between Josh Downs and Anthony Richardson for a limited amount of time last season. As you start plugging in some of those numbers for like 50% snap rate for Downs out of the slot, it looks a lot better than having Addy Mitchell over there based on what we saw the first 2 weeks. So for me, if I had to do anything with this game, I'd be packaging Anthony Richardson being successful through the air with the Indy money line. I don't think they're crazy correlated. I probably wouldn't be single game parlaying these. Bears, man, something going on. It's been problematic here right from the jump. Also looked at Caleb Williams' interceptions, but those have been steamed up to places I probably don't want to go outside of Pick'em, potentially for the people who have access to that, but probably staying away from this game altogether. That looks okay to me. Last, just kind of okay play here. And I went back and forth with Lofty, who, if you're not watching Lofty's week 3 plays, especially coming off of that week 2 round robin smash that he had over on FanDuel, 5 for 5. Yeah, 5 for 5 is pretty good. Pretty good. That's about as good as you can do if you bet 5 touchdowns and they all hit. So that's pretty damn good. But Lofty and I were going back and forth talking about Zamir White, because what do we expect his usage to be? Because I don't believe in Alexander Mattison. I'm a Vikings fan, and I saw everything that was problematic with them last year. But as we kick off this afternoon window, and where I have my 5 plays that will be consecutive after this game, including 3 locks, Zamir White is going to get more usage than 13 carries and 9 carries. I think it has to happen, but I don't know how I feel about attacking any of his rushing yard props coming off of 44 and 24 for them here. I know that they feel comfortable having him there, and Josh Jacobs now gone, Green Bay, doing pretty good over there. But overall, friends, I look at this. I see Zamir White 13.5 rushing attempts. It's about the only thing that's even remotely noticeable in this game for me. I thought about laddering him with Lofty. Maybe I will when it's all said and done, but not going to steal that play from it. Well, I mean, I can because I tail him and do all of those great things. But Zamir White, over 13.5 rush attempts. I'm thinking about it, really, really thinking about it, but more than likely a game to stay away from. Oh, yeah, Andy Dalton, he's starting for Carolina. Carolina still sucks. Look at nothing on that side. Miami and Seattle coming up next. Skylar Thompson back in our lives. Oh, boy. Tua Tagovailoa. We'll see what ends up happening with him now on IR. But Seattle, shout out Seattle for, a gutsy win going up against New England on the road. New England's defense, I know that, they just got smashed on a short week on Thursday night. Short weeks, always a little bit strange to me, but New England's defense, pretty darn good, I think. Overall, they're going to have to be to even be remotely competitive with Jacoby Brissett playing like we saw him play in week 30, the Thursday night kickoff. Hey, it worked out well for me, so I'm not going to be too upset about it, but Jackson Smith-Njigba, big breakout game for him. Nice to see. You love to see it. Kenneth Walker, he was doubtful for this one, but now he's kind of making a push to play here on Saturday morning. I'm not sure what to make of that, but probably not going to be going towards that Zach Charbonnet under that I ended up firing up in the premium Discord, which hit with absolute ease. He's just not a guy that I expected to get a lot done against massive, 7-8 man boxes going up for New England there. But in this spot against Miami, it's going to be all Devon Achane for me. Mostert continues to be doubtful. Doubt he plays in this one. I saw 22 rushing attempts in a negative game script where they lost 31-10 to Buffalo. He's got insane usage, 85% of snaps here going forward. It is going to be insanity with Mostert out. And I don't see how we're getting plus 110 over at FanDuel, but we are. And I'm getting a plus money number at Bet365. I've got him scoring more than half the time in this football game. Don't you? Devon Achane is absolutely special. There are times last season where I tried to short him because I just had usage concerns with the 3-man backfield. Jeff Wilson was still getting worked in. Jeff Wilson was nowhere to be found, and kind of a mistake for me. So I'm going to try to rectify it here at a plus 110 number. Oh boy. Lock season here on the road in Seattle. He is going to be the key for the castle to help out Skylar Thompson, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle in that entire passing attack. Like this one too, Baltimore at Dallas. Baltimore getting incinerated at the end of that game by the Vegas Raiders. The Vegas Raiders of all teams, man. And then the Dallas Cowboys defensively just getting smoked by the New Orleans Saints. I mean, it was not even remotely competitive. Dak Prescott had a pretty decent game, a solid workman's game there in week 1 against Cleveland and their defense, but pretty tough to keep pace there in that one. Got completely blitzkrieg from the jump, post to post, just completely murdered. But Dak Prescott, I think he's been more efficient than what the box score shows. 2 touchdowns, 2 picks, but went back and watched quite a bit of that New Orleans tape purely because I can't believe what we're seeing from New Orleans. 14, 15 consecutive drives to start off the season scoring. Well, Dallas's defense had some definite leaky spots, but not as many as we saw there on the Baltimore side going up against Vegas and Brock Bowers. They had a lot of trouble with the tight end position. And obviously in this game, Jake Ferguson comes back, didn't play in week 2. I think that's a huge deal for Dallas in being successful for this one. Brock Bowers in the middle of the field, getting everything done in the middle of that Baltimore defense. I think we're going to see that continue to happen here. And now you get the number 2 weapon back for him. It should open up the field on the Dallas side of the offense. As for Baltimore, Lamar Jackson, I'm not worried about him. I do think Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely, they need to figure out ways to have 12 personnel and continue to have both of them on the field, because right now, Mark Andrews, yes, he's running more routes. He's getting targeted a little bit more here now, coming off of that week 1 situation. But 5 targets total for Mark Andrews, 7 on the season. Isaiah Likely last week, 3 total targets, 2 catches coming off of 12 targets. You got to figure out ways to get your best players on the field, even if it's against the nature as an OC of what you generally call. And yeah, they need to have their tight ends blocking. We'll also say an interesting stat. Mark Andrews, he's been blocking on like 10, 11% of snaps here so far through 2 weeks. Doesn't sound like a high number. The highest he's ever had is 2% of snaps over the course of his NFL season. And that is on passing plays, on passing downs. So he's actually been blocking a little bit on some of these passing downs to give different looks and try to open things up for Zay Flowers and Isaiah Likely. You need Mark Andrews in the middle of the field here against Dallas. I expect them to find ways to be successful. Give me the points here, just all the points, 47.5 of them, 48 technically, because, well, it'd be weird to have a half point show up in a game. Probably would be problematic. We got 3 games left here. Hit the like button, subscribe button, notification bell as we go to my favorite play that we have on the entire slate, Detroit taking on Arizona here. And going back to last season, Detroit's secondary, it still feels as though it's going to be the weak point of this entire football team. We know Aiden Hutchinson up front. We're going to see the pass rush continue from them. I kind of like what they've done from a rough run stuffing perspective here. Also with Derek Barnes, we're seeing a run defense, great improvement in a drastic way for him. Alex Anzalone, I like overall a number of the pieces in terms of the linebacking core and those front 4, but man, is it brutal. You start looking at Terrion Arnold here, first round draft pick out of Alabama, and he has been getting torched. 91st out of 96 coverage grade. Sometimes you just don't know till they get to the NFL level. Now, Terrion Arnold, he's still, like a 6 foot, 195 speedster kind of dude, can kind of run all over the place, but he's been better as a run stopper than anything else. And that is not what I was expecting here from him. And it's going to be very, very interesting to see Kyler Murray dropping back here as much as what we just saw. Now with Marvin Harrison acclimated again, everybody hitting the panic button after the first week. I did say, let's just hold off a beat. I didn't bet anything. That would have been nice. 2 touchdowns, 130 yards, 8 targets, at least going his direction. And well, all 4 of those targets that he didn't catch, those were the only 4 incompletions for Kyler Murray. And I know from a fantasy perspective, I was very high on Kyler. Everybody was kind of high on Kyler. But we're talking about a guy that at the height of his powers a couple of years ago, pre-injuries, pre-getting dinged up, the ACL tear, he was just special and offensively can get a lot done for Arizona. James Conner, a great fit still for this football team. The longevity this guy has had in this league. We'll see Trey Benson eventually get worked in even more here and there. Obviously, they were way, way, way up from the jump last time out. That's why you saw 11 carries for him. I'm not expecting that kind of usage. Will be utilized in the passing game. And, well, that's really all I'm looking at. Trey McBride, Greg Dortch, and, of course, Marvin Harrison after the big week here against Detroit. I love the opportunity for Arizona to get things done in the air against the Detroit Lions here, specifically with those coverage grades that I'm looking at for everybody around it here. They give up 304 yards passing to the Rams there. Cooper Kupp just incessantly insane there. They did limit Tampa Bay there, but Tampa Bay, they were up. They were able to kind of just run it 3 yards at a time with Rashad White and be ineffective. Bucky Irving, pretty ineffective in that game as well. I've got this closer to 250, 255 and a half. Yeah, 255 and a half. There we go. 228 and a half is where his current number is over at Caesars. It's not as good over at Bet365, and yet it's still my favorite play over there at the moment. Kyler Murray over 228 and a half. We're going to see that usage up for them. This is a game script at home where they are still dogs. I think there's lots of ways that Arizona just airs it out with an improved Kyler Murray with a healthy Kyler Murray. We go from a healthy Kyler Murray to the unhealthiest football game that I have seen in a week 3 in quite some time. Think of the star players we're missing from this one. Rams, San Francisco, Christian McCaffrey, out. Deebo Samuel, out. George Kittle, out. Those are 3 massive players on the San Francisco side. I don't have any props available here yet for the ancillary pieces from San Francisco. I'm going to try to jump on some type of Eric Saubert. I think he's going to end up being the guy who ends up being like the number one tight end for them here in this spot. I think Jake Tonges, while he was the surprise ad there during the preseason when in terms of who was going to be making the squad early on. What was the name of the guy that they got rid of? It was Cameron Latu. Cameron Latu was the guy that they ended up getting rid of. But I definitely like Jake Tonges. But yeah, Eric Saubert should be the tight end one here. If there's anything short of 24.5 receiving yards for him, I might have to play it here up against the Rams, where we didn't see that middle of the field with Sam Laporta in that week one against Detroit. But we're going to see it a lot more here because the Rams defensively, I still think there are some warts. And yeah, week one was just kind of rust all around for both teams, for LA and Detroit. And then LA just got completely blitzkrieged against Arizona. I've said that word twice now. It's kind of applicable, though. As for the rest of the injuries here on the Rams side, Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, IR, just problematic all the way around. Now, we're going to see Higbee and Allen out here. Colby Parkinson continues to be a thing in the passing game, but I spent a lot of time figuring out exactly how I wanted to be utilizing these Rams and trying to figure out what I think the snap share is going to be. I think Whittington ends up being a guy who plays a big role for this team. I think Tutu Atwell probably ends up on the field more than we would want. And Tyler Johnson, I can't believe his role in this offense so far. 10 targets and been on the field a lot, but I think the number one has to, going back to last year, be Demarcus Robinson here in this spot. I think it's a really short number, sitting at 39.5, 40.5 on these props for the receiving side for him against the San Francisco side. That, well, again, it's still a 43.5 total. It's not like we're not expecting points, despite both of these teams missing all of their best skill position players outside of Brandon Ayuk, of course. Oh, wouldn't you know it? Looking at packaging this together, that's what I did. You should do it too. Demarcus Robinson, 40 plus receiving yards. Brandon Ayuk, 70 plus. I don't know how the Rams slow down Brandon Ayuk here as the focal point for it. And even if they double team him, even if there's ways, he's just so much bigger, stronger, and well, he's going to be the go-to guy here on the San Francisco side. Might see 12, 13, 14 targets going his direction, just like we saw Cooper Kupp up against Detroit's secondary. It's going to kind of be something similar, I would think. Yeah, Cooper Kupp, a different role than a Brandon Ayuk, but like the receiving yards for both of them. Robinson, Ayuk, fire them both up. Last game of the night. Let's get there. Sunday Night Football. You know who's been a print fest? I think most people in the premium Discord know who's been a print fest, and I wish we had put more money on him. He was a lock in week one. Week two, he was not, unfortunately, and it was a little bit of a bummer. We had two locks that ended up in that game. The Atlanta-Pittsburgh game it was, because we had the receiving yards for Najee Harris. He ends up getting the one catch that we needed, gets over that 6.5 or 7.5, depending on when you bet that receiving yards. But that's just my brain recalling things. And it's actually on a spreadsheet right in front of me. But Kansas City, 3-point favorites heading to Atlanta. Hot Atlanta, coming off of a win on the road in Philadelphia. They got away from some of that stuff that I brought up before, where you got to get away from the pistol if you have an immobile quarterback. The exact opposite of what I'm trying to say. Atlanta, it is going to be very, very interesting to see how the targets get spread around between Drake London and Kyle Pitts. But for whatever reason, Ray-Ray McCloud just not going anywhere. He played the slot. He continues to be the slot guy here for the Atlanta Falcons. If there's one thing that I know, it's that there's a Kirk Cousins who likes to key in on one dude a lot and make them kind of his safety valve play. We saw that with TJ Hawkinson in Minnesota. We saw it with Logan Thomas in Washington. Obviously, Justin Jefferson all the time because he's a god. But I'm very much here for Ray-Ray McCloud. 29.5 receiving yards. We're seeing a crazy role for this guy. Do I think he's any good? No. Do I think that I'm going to be betting him up to 40 in spots? No. But at 29.5 still, I don't understand how this line keeps showing up in low numbers. It was in the mid-teens, and then it was 22.5, got bet up to 28.5, and now it's only a 1 yard difference going up against Kansas City, where if there's one place to attack Kansas City's secondary, it is in the slot position. I mean, they have so many serviceable players outside of that. And I think we're going to see Kirk Cousins in this current iteration get to some of those quick, short routes. He's not going to be airing it out to Drake London on the sidelines, Darnell Mooney and burner speed. It's just not going to happen nearly as much here. At least they're getting away from pistol and getting some play action in our lives. And you're going to need to do that a lot in Kansas City, but in a dome, getting outside of Philly. Obviously the Philly thing worked out very, very nicely for him though, but Ray-Ray McCloud not going anywhere. Keep firing him up. 29.5 receiving yards. Let's party. And that does it for the week 3 edition of Lindy's Leans, Likes, and Locks. Head to that comment section below. Let me know your favorite plays that exist on the board for this one. We got, 35 minutes? 35 minutes. We got this thing done. No, less than 35. That's beautiful. Go me, go team, go producer Jacob. Thank you so much for all your hard work here. I know he was traveling, running around. Hit the like button for him, if not for me. But Saturday, we got this goods to you. Let's break it all down on Sunday. And hey, you want to join Tails? Well, hop into that premium Discord and get Aton Chander 2 for 1. That is your promo code. Until next time, friends, until week 4. Oh, well, no, that's a lie. Until Monday Night Football, where we have 2 games to break down. I'm Eric Lindquist. Best of luck in the NFL streets on Sunday.